from PRX.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and friends beyond the binary, it's time for the podcaster who doesn't know the lines preceding this, but I'm coming at you like a cloud horse, something else, like a dream, cloud horse, in a song from 14. I'm here to help. And I guess I'm not coming at you. I'm floating around nearby you. And what am I talking about? Well, I don't really know, but I'm just here to help because it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep.
Not feeling the spring energy yet? You're not behind. With Grow Therapy, you can start small, like talking to someone who gets it. Covered by insurance, built for real progress. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent, licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/PRX today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/PRX. growtherapy.com/PRX. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
All right, everybody, it's time to talk about tonight's sponsor, Helix Sleep. And I think it's time for you to take that Helix quiz. All you do is go to helixsleep.com/sleep. Take the quiz, and you'll get matched with a mattress that fits your sleep preferences, your sleep needs. What's going to help you get a good night's sleep? Because I can tell you from experience, I've spent all winter long snuggled in my Helix. I was so comfortable. I got to tell you, I love my Helix. And if you've been listening to this podcast on a regular basis, you know, Helix is the sponsor we've had the longest relationship with, because everybody deserves a mattress that feels comfortable to them, that helps them sleep. And maybe that's you. I don't know. Does your mattress do that for you? Well, that's why we work with Helix, because the Helix quiz matches you with the perfect mattress based on your personal preferences and sleep needs. It makes buying a mattress easy. Helix is award-winning, the most awarded mattress brand, tested and reviewed by experts like Forbes and Wired. There's free shipping and seamless delivery. Helix delivers a mattress right to your door with free shipping in the U.S. And there's the Happy with Helix guarantee. Rest easy with seamless returns and exchanges. The Happy with Helix guarantee offers a risk-free, customer-first experience designed to ensure you're completely satisfied with your new mattress. So get over there. I don't know what you're waiting for, honestly. You deserve a new bed. And you deserve seeing what Helix has in store for you. So go to helixsleep.com/sleep to see the latest offers for Sleep With Me listeners. That's helixsleep.com/sleep. Make sure you enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent you. helixsleep.com/sleep. Thanks, everybody. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots, and I'm running through the yeses for supporting the show, because it takes a lot of yeses to support the show, but I want to go through the no's first. If you're new, don't support the show. If you only listen once in a while, no need to support the show. If you can't support the show, don't worry. We got you. And if you've already chosen or you're not interested in supporting the show, don't worry either. We got you. It is rare to support the show, and that's okay, because it's difficult, even for the people that have heard me asking for years. So I'm trying to see if the yeses have piled up at this point for you. Like, yes, you love having a bore friend or a bore bud. Yes, I maybe put a smile on your face or half a smile. Yes, you got favorite episodes. Yes, you like to listen to it a certain way. Yes, you know the show is there when you go to bed, when you're in the middle of the night, when you're on the road all night long, night after night, year after year. Yes, I know the podcast is there for me. I count on it. Yes, I couldn't find anything else like this. Yes, I couldn't replace the show. Yes, I know how much goes into this podcast. Yes, I know it needs people like me to support it. Yes, I want to be a part of this thing right now. for me and everybody else. Yeah, it's going to feel great when I sign up for the podcast because it already feels great when I listen now. Yes, I can't wait to support the show because I love it, or I really strongly like the podcast. If that's you, you could sign up right now at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. But if you have all those yeses, don't wait because they don't last. I've put stuff off, but you know what I mean. So don't put it off. Support the show now. sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. I'm only asking if it's all yeses for you. And then set up the bonus content tomorrow, and you'll be a part of this thing now and into the future for as long as you listen. You'll be able to count on this show, and other people will be counting on you in a good way, no pressure way. You can cancel at any point, but you'll be a part of this thing that impacts so many people's lives, and its goal is to bring sleepy joy and delight in the deep, dark night. So if all that's yeses, sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Thanks. Oh, Mystery Bard, a lot of people help out on our show. Who are they?
Chris Posty Poster Son sounds like an earful. Wrote the theme song. Edits episodes too. Carl W. the Legend. Also edits episodes. Ashley, Kenny, Scotty, Jennifer. Runner. Eric and the team at Astound are on the website. I am the Mystery Bard. I do the lullabies, yeah. I do commissions at JonathanMann.net. I'll write a song for you. Any reason at all. You can tell me the story and I'll make it personal. You see the kindness shine straight on through when the listeners form their own Facebook group. Keith, Stacy, Sarah, Julie, and Jennifer. These are your moderators. Get support dear Scooter on Patreon. Buy the merch and support the sponsors. You can find anything you want at sleepwithmepodcast.com. And we're so proud that we could dance. Rusty Biscuit, Lois, Hannah like banana. Leah does the transcripts.
Thanks, Mr. Bard. And remember, there's tons of free ways to help the podcast out. If you're one of those listeners who have been saying, hey, don't try to support the show directly. You could follow or subscribe to the show on your podcast app of choice so you get the episodes as they come out. You could comment or like episodes where you could do that. And you could let somebody know about the podcast. Those are all huge, huge ways to help the show, and I really appreciate it. Thanks, everybody. And what do you say we get on with the show? Hey, you all night tossing, turning, mind racing, trouble getting to sleep, trouble staying asleep. Well, welcome. This is Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. We do it with a bedtime story. All you need to do is get in bed, turn out the lights, and press play. I'm going to do the rest. What I'm going to attempt to do is create a safe place where you can set aside whatever's keeping you awake, whether it's thoughts, feelings, physical sensations, changes in time, temperature, work schedule, you're traveling, your partner is traveling, it's windy, it's rainy, whatever it is. I'm here to keep you company. And if you're new, let me just say this because I've gotten some feedback lately. Give this podcast a few tries. Kick back. You can keep a curious open mind, but a lot of what I do here is pretty much nonsense or it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But I'm here to help. So what I'm going to do, did I say I'm going to send my voice across the deep dark night? I don't think I did. I'm going to use lulling, soothing, creaky, dulcet tones. So those are some methods I'm going to use to try to help you. Pointless meanders, tangents, like going off topic. Like if I had a topic, actually tonight we do have a topic. We'll be talking to someone about sipping lemonade and their view, really in-depth coverage of sipping lemonade for real. But you say, okay, I could probably listen. What's my adjusted use time of listening to facts about lemonade? Usually about a 30-second commercial. So what are you going to, how long are you going to talk about lemonade and sipping lemonade for? Well, I'm going to talk about the lemonade experience. That'll be about 45 minutes. Oh, if you're new, I guess that's the opportunity for me to tell you about the structure of the show. We start off with some business. That's part of the way we keep all the archives free. And if you wonder tomorrow, when your hand hits the fridge tomorrow, Just think sleepwithmepodcast.com/sponsors. You could check it out and say, oh, okay, that's how I support the podcast. But if you're new, not super important. Then we have an intro, which we've begun. And that's about, it's about like 15 to 20 to 18 minutes of me trying to explain what the podcast is, and usually not succeeding, but kind of succeeding. Okay, brain, barely, somewhat succeeding. The scooter story, somewhat succeeding. Yeah, that could be another book. But what was I saying? Oh, so the intro is, it's a long intro, a show within a show. Best to help you, ease into bed, get ready for bed, prepare. You say, okay, now I know Scooter's trying to create a safe place where I could set aside all that stuff. He's here to help. He's a little bit strange and a little bit goofy, but he's well-intentioned. Because I'm here, I'm applying to be your boar friend, your boar bae, your boar bud. I guess I could be your borber, which that sounds a bit like a barber, but you could say, well, Scoots, because I know everybody's got a different level of comfort. Some people, they're like, yeah, I'm your boar friend, I'm your boar bestie, you're my boar bae, or my boar sibs, my boar cousins, but I could be your borber. I would have no clue how to spell that. I can barely sound it out, but it'd be like your neighbor, your borber. You say, well, I don't know about you being my boar bestie, but you could be my borber, and I could kind of hear you, on the distance, like kind of like if your neighbor's watching TV at that just right volume. I almost said temperature, because you could say sounds and temperature have some parallels. I mean, you could talk to Dallas at 20,000 hertz about those kind of things, but what was I saying? I get distracted. I'm thinking about all these great sound podcasts, because World of Sound is another great one you could check out. But, like just the right sound where it's just murmuring. Some people listen to podcasts like that. So that's the intro. I think I might have summarized the intro in there. I also went off topic a few times, just like I always do. So there's the intro. Then there's a little bit of business between the intro and the show. And that's how we keep the show going. Ideally, we can keep all of our archives free, over 600 shows. And then we have the episode, which is usually about 45 minutes. Tonight, we'll be discussing sipping lemonade and porch swings and those kind of things. Things we say, well, everybody, we'll just think about it. We'll talk about it, and then we'll have some thank yous at the end. So it's a structure show. Also, if you're new, a couple things you may have figured out just by intuition. You don't need to listen to me or to kind of make sense of the podcast. I think like the same part of your brain that is trying to keep you up at night sometimes can say, what, this podcast doesn't make any sense. What's up with this guy? And if you could just give that phrase part of you a little bit of a hug and say, yeah, what's up with this guy? I understand the skepticism coming in. I'm a very skeptical person. So it's just a matter of hugging that skeptic and saying, don't worry, Scoots is my borber. He's 2 doors down. What is up with this guy? Because I'm here to help. I'm here to keep you company. So you don't need to listen to me. Here's the other thing. I don't know if this is irony or paradox or just the fact my a few misfiring synapses or synapses. You don't need to, there's no pressure to fall asleep. This is a podcast to be here while you fall asleep, to kind of put you to sleep by just keeping you company. You're just like a friend. That's why I use all that terminology. I just want to help. I've been there before, tossing and turning, all those things, or thinking or waking up and saying, what the heck? Why'd you wake up at 3:30? You say, well, it's like, it doesn't feel like 3:30. You say, no, let's not talk about this. I just want to go back to sleep. Well, it doesn't, just noticing, doesn't feel like 3:30, does it? It feels like we should get this day going. And they'd say, who are you exactly? Because I've never seen you during the day. You're some sort of go-getter part of me, huh? Yep, I think we should just go get it right now. No, it's 3:30. I got to go. I'm going to go back to sleep. I think I was just having a nice dream about like one of those fountains of chocolate, but it was pillows and it was something like tangible and not sticky. And I was sleeping there. It was a dream, so it doesn't make any... Well, no, I think we should get after it right now. Okay, here's the thing, though. When I'm trying to get after it, I've never seen you before, except around this time of day. And I just have to guess this. I'm not usually this well-grounded, but I actually am in the middle of a podcast intro and not asleep. I think you're kind of like just an illusion. You're somebody else talking behind you. And you're really not a go-getter. You're a go get scoots and interrupt his sleep. Well, oh, geez, you got me. I don't know what to do. Well, I know what to do. Come on. I was just talking about skeptics, and I'm not skeptical about you. Come in for a hug. Really? You want to hug me? Well, no. I want to carry you. I tell you what, we're going to go back to sleep together. And we might not get back to that chocolate fountain that's a pillow in some way that only makes sense in a dream. But, why don't we try? Wow, that sounds great. You must make... Yeah, well, I've been doing this for a little while, so I'm getting better. I'm minuscule I'm going to become a well-adjusted human, one minuscule change at a time. By look out 90s, they're going to be the new 40s when I get there. I'm going to be like so well-adjusted. Believe me. So, come on in for a hug. I'm going to do, have you heard about this new method I do? Some people call it tapping. I call it pitter-pattering. I'll pitter-patter your back. I got to get back to the audience. So, hey, I'm back. Sorry about that. I just dealing with some sort of internal illusion. I don't know. I'm just doing some hugging and some pitter-pattering, keeping some company, even internally. But if you're new, like I said, I'm here to help. You don't need to listen to me. No pressure to fall asleep. I'll be here for about an hour. And if you can't sleep, I'm going to be here the whole time to keep you company, to be your boyfriend as well. So I'll be here the whole time, whether you're awake or you're asleep. And I'm trying to think of anything else you need to know. Give it a few tries. That's what most reviewers say. There's very few things. This podcast has a pretty wide range globally of listeners and listener tastes and how people use the podcast. And so I just try to make the best sleep podcast I can. But one thing I've seen almost all the listeners agree on is that it takes a few tries because this is a little bit different. But I appreciate you. I appreciate both things. I appreciate you, the fact you checked out the podcast, you decided to give it a listen. But I also appreciate the fact that you deserve a good night's sleep. And I'd like to help facilitate, not to use a very clinical, I don't know, is facilitate a clinical word? It's more a facilities-based word, like a planning word. But I'd like to facilitate you getting a good night's sleep. I'd like to help you be rested tomorrow, if I can, in my small way. Because I'd love for you to get a good night's sleep as often as you possibly can so you can be out there in the world flourishing and enjoying life. And this is how I help. And I want to help because I've been there and because I've heard from a lot of different people who listen to this show across the entire spectrum of humanity. And I'm honored to be in a position to help those people that the podcast works for. So why not give it a few tries? I'm here to help. And as I said, appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming by. I strive and I yearn to help you fall asleep. Thank you so much. And let's hear from a few ways that we keep this show going. All right, everybody, it's time to talk about tonight's sponsor, Zocdoc. Finding a doctor that you really like is kind of like finding a diamond in the rough, searching, because you got to find somebody that's in your network, They're nearby. They take new patients. They have open time slots. But that's just the beginning, because then you want somebody that's going to listen to you, explain things to you in very clear language, follow up, and make you feel safe and cared for, right? So we all have our perfect doctor checklist because we deserve it. And that's why you got to check out Zocdoc. Zocdoc makes the whole thing easy. Zocdoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone you love. And we're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states. Whether you're looking for dermatology, dentistry, primary care, eye care, or any one of the other 200-plus specialties offered on Zocdoc, you can easily search by specialty or symptom to build the care team that's right for you. You want to see your doctor in person? Great. And if you prefer a video visit, you could do that too. And then there's those thousands of verified patient reviews that give you a real sense of who your doctor is. Whatever it is, you can feel confident that you can book with a doctor you know you'll love. And as I've said, since I've made my move, I've been checking Zocdoc, and I'm still using it as part of my search for my care providers. So you got to check it out too. Stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to Zocdoc.com/sleep to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's Zocdoc.com/sleep. Zocdoc.com/sleep. Thank you, Zocdoc, for sponsoring this message. All right, everybody, it's time for like a random trending style episode. And, you know, normally have characters on the show like Ray and Bernie. And then the rest of the characters are usually in stories like, or people, you know, that are paying massive amounts of money that have these boredom seminars. Those that like that support the show. And I haven't met a new person that said, man, you really need to be on Sleep With Me podcast as a guest in a long, long time, where I would actually turn the reins of the show over to them. But I met this person recently in some travels, maybe like, and this is a human being, not I met them, you know, just on the edge of the transverse plane. But in reality, so I met them in the reality, the loosest version of reality. And so I wanted to have them on the show because I said, well, I think you really have something, no offense to our other guests, Bernie and Ray. Who else have we had on? Kind of Tommen and Sir Pounce and Gregor are kind of guests. And then Brad Bradderson and everyone at the Boredom Institute for Health, Wealth, and Happiness. Jenny, you know, then we've had, you know, sentient beings like Jenny, the username generator, and that spleen. So I can't wait to introduce our next guest. And his name is Carl with a K. I have a brother with Carl with a C, and then another Carl with a K works on the show. And this is another Carl. I don't know if we have, I don't know if that makes a, can we do a triptych of Carls? So I think I'll do a little interview to set this up and then turn things over to Carl. Carl, welcome to Sleep With Me podcast. Why, thank you for having me on, Scooter. Yeah, thank you for, like, I think listeners will really recognize right away like why I'm having you on the show. And as soon as I heard your voice, and as soon as I engaged you in conversation, and as soon as I engaged you in conversation, I would say it was leisurely. Why, thank you kindly. It's good to be here. It's good to be here on the Sleep With Me podcast. Yeah, and now, Carl, there's a couple of things, like, one of the reasons we don't have a lot of guests is because the listeners put a lot of trust in me. And also they say, like, I'm pretty good at being myself or just to people that are, so, Carl, for the listeners' benefit, I'm going to plug my ears, and you could tell the listeners whether you exist in reality or in my mind. Scooter, are your ears plugged? Because I'll tell the listeners how you doing. Good to meet you. Name's Carl. 1 second, listener, because you know what, Scooter, let me pat you here. You could take your fingers out of the ear. Why don't you go have an afternoon to yourself? I'll take it from here. And I'll take it good and I'll take it easy here with your listener. I'm right here for them, and I'm going to help them relax and unwind just like I've been unwound. And I'm going to, you know what we talked about, Scooter. You already did the pre-work to get this going, and I know exactly what to do. So why don't you don't even need to say another word. I'll head off, and yeah, there goes Scooter. And I want to thank you for giving me a listen here. And Scooter wanted me to tell you all where I exist, whence I exist, in his mind or somewhere else. And, that's not really what about, it's not about putting people to sleep. It's not about answers. Scooter knows that. He knows that it's about being here for you to help. And I know Scooter was worried because he said, Carl, you sound different, but you sound comforting. And I think I'll take the risk and put you on the show because you're just so darn relaxing. And he wasn't just talking about the tone of my voice or the pacing of my voice. Scooter and I shared a lemonade. And we shared an appreciation of, neither one of us talks perfect. That's another thing me and Scooter have in common. But we enjoy sitting, drinking lemonade. And every darn person that listens to this podcast knows that there's a great conglomerate out there with the most number one brand name lemonade, I guess there's a few brand name lemonades now that I'm thinking about it. But we know the one that should be sponsoring this show. And, you could say to yourself, what in the name of Wilford Brimley are you doing not sponsoring this darn here podcast? With Scooter and I, we enjoy drinking lemonade, sipping lemonade, and drinking it more, refilling lemonade, watching lemonade sweat. Oh, boy. Now, these are things you could do on their own, but as the sum of the parts that is greater than the whole, it's a whole experience, consuming lemonade as a practice. And, that guy, Brad Bradderson, Scooter was talking about, might sell things. And, yeah, lemonade ain't free unless you live on, unless you have, create your own sugar and your own lemons. Even then, it's a fruit of your own labor. But lemonade, is a pretty accessible drink. And some people might say, well, I'd prefer, I don't make lemonade out of lemons. Well, maybe you have a limeade. Maybe you prefer a tea, a sweet tea or regular tea or fruit tea. Maybe you like water. Maybe you like bubbling water. Maybe you like something else, whatever it is. Sometimes drinking a drink in just the right place is a ritual in and of itself. And that's what I'm here to talk about, not just about talking about lemonade. But there I was drinking a lemonade with Scooter, looking at the lemonade on the pitcher, sweating. Not a picture of lemonade. I believe that was one of those Pafish things that Scooter listens to, that thing, Pafish. They have an album, Picture Lemonade, I think. And Scooter just peeked in. He must have heard me joking about Pafish. That's what his father calls fish. Yeah, but Scooter and I, we had a lemonade. We shared a pitcher of lemonade, so I guess we shared the lemonade experience. And everyone deserves a little lemonade experience. But Scooter said this is more than a lemonade experience, Carl. Because Carl knows about the view when you're drinking lemonade. When you're sitting there sipping lemonade, enjoying it, sip by sip, drink by drink, in just the right place at just the right time. That's lemonade. But having lemonade is more than just sipping it. It's about sharing the moment. And Scooter said to make sure to tell you all about the perfect lemonade moment. Now, I will take a moment to address, everyone has a different window they look at the world through. And I hope you could be like Carl and open your window up real wide and let the outside world fill in your window, expand the view of your window. And maybe you look at the window from both sides, and maybe your friends have you over there say, Carl, I'd like you to look out my window, how I see the world, how I enjoy it. Because for me, it's not about lemonade. It's about knitting for kittens or kicking rocks. For me, it's about, chalking up some chalkboard or teaching a lad to tie their shoe or singing a song, whistling a tune. Maybe for some people, it's listening out a tune. But whatever it is, also Scooter said, do not adjust your speed. This is the speed Carl goes at, and I just talk at this speed, and that's why Scooter had me on the show. He said, Carl, let's test this out. Let's test out how you come on the show, and you just talk so darn relaxing. And I guess some of you might say, Carl, I never heard anybody with where are you from? What parts do you hail from? Where have you lived? What dialect is that? And I said, well, I'm from the southern region of Scooter's imagination, of course. Much like the doctors from the, I said, well, I'm not quite in the amygdala or the stemographic, yeah, but I'm down there in the warm part, the part that gets the most moist air. And the part that Scooter, he never met me. He said, Carl, where'd you come from? Holy cow, you're relaxed. And I said, Scooter, you see these shoulders? These are shoulders of someone that's worked a full day and is now done with a full day of work. And Scooter, these are the shoulders of satisfaction. And a sipping of cool lemonade. Have a seat with me, Scooter, and let's get to know one another. Not by words, but by presence. And he squealed and clapped his hands and said, you're going to give me a present? I said, here you go. And there was the sounds of the lemonade. The clankety-clank of the ice in the glass. The cup of whoosh, plop, a sound of the lemonade. And, imagine it yourself. Listen to the lemonade and let it relax you further. But I was thinking not everyone, finds sipping lemonade with Carl or Scooter. I don't know if anyone, there's a few people on this earth that might say daytime Scooter's relaxing. But I say, well, maybe if he's with Carl, he might be relaxing. But otherwise, he's quite a fella. That Scooter. He's in need of lemonade experience. He's in need of the lemonade experience without doubt. But there we were, for the first time, getting to know one another by drinking slow, by gulping. I said, we're going to gulp down. Don't worry, we got a pitcher, whole pitcher of lemonade. And believe me, I could go get some more. Unless one of those giant corporations that makes lemonade says, hey, let's sponsor this here podcast. And I could joke about that. What about that? Scooter did give me a taste of some product he was trying. True lemon, true lime or something. Somebody get a message out to them and say, hey, how about it? Carl's here. And he I guess I could just keep making lemonade for Scooter. But, where I live in his brain, it's tough to get out of there, get the lemon. It's easier for me to just walk him through the steps. Anyhow, here, I'm Carl. I'm here to tell you about the lemon. So we were, drinking lemonade. And you might think to yourself, when you're in Scooter's mind, well, first off, where's Wilford Brimley? If you're in Scooter's mind, now I'm no Wilford Brimley. So if you're projecting an image on me, I guess it could be Wilford Brimley in a seersucker suit with a, what is that? Some sort of not wicker hat, but some sort of plant-based hat. But I'm not Wilford Brimley. I'm Carl, your friend here. Friendly face with a friendly smile. If you rode by on your bike or you walked by on your feet or with your puppy dog, with a cat in a stroller, I'd lift my glass to you and say, mighty fine time of day, isn't it? Enjoy the rest of your time of day. And hopefully the spirit of Carl would carry along with you and you'd say, ooh-wee, man, this air feels good. That smile felt good. But I wanted to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing, where we are here. Because Scooter said, holy Carl, what is going on? And I said, we're just sitting here drinking lemonade, Scooter. And he said, nowhere we're drinking the lemonade. And I reached for my phone. I said, to see if Helsinki and Sweden were on the line. Because I said, do you want to know really where we are, Scooter? Or physically where it feels like we are? And then I used the word, I said, lemonade, lemonade, lemonade. And then if you say pink raspberry after that, that's when the Northern Europeans and they say, okay, let's go get Scooter, bring him back in for a scan. But Scooter said, no, where are we right now? It's sitting here together, Carl. And I said, we're outside my home, Scooter. We're looking here. We're on my porch. And there's a lot of options for sitting here. There's the swing, of course, Scooter, where you tried to sit for a bit and you did some swinging, some active swinging. The one thing about these swings is they're not exactly designed for lying down. You were wisely noted that. You said, how come... These are called a porch swing, right? How come they always have the most uncomfortable arm? They always have hard arms. And then you said, well, and they're not exactly, then you took the time to show me how it would even if the arms were not hard, that it wasn't exactly sizable. And I had myself a guffaw. And then a tall, long sip of lemonade. And you said, what do you think about that, Carl? And I did another laugh, and I said, well, you're a wise young man, Scooter. But you see, the thing about porch swings is there's room for two. And maybe they're not there to be the most comfortable thing. Maybe they're there... so you're in the company of someone else, maybe someone sweet, Scooter, or that you're sweet on. Maybe you're already feeling a little awkward. Or maybe you're supposed to be paying more attention to the person at your side than the fact that you're trying to get comfortable. Also, maybe there was a history of people who coming home back in the ways you used to live, Scooter. No judgment about that, but that maybe before your time, there was a lot of people coming home and sleeping in porch swings and, waking up to find their uncle or they said, what is he doing sleeping on our porch swing? And by making them a little bit less comfortable. I think mostly it's for sharing a moment, Scooter, and for bringing your attention outside yourself. But yeah, the porch swing is one option for sitting. And then there's these two wicker chairs, wisher chairs, which I had called them for the longest time. I said, wish a chair. Wouldn't you wish to sit in a chair so fine? Now, of course, these are good for air circulation. Now, you may say, like Scooter, they're not super comfortable, but I've been known to sleep a spell here in one of these chairs. And I know they're excellent for, also exposition. Think about all the exposition that's happened in chairs like these over the years in motion pictures and TV shows. Even comic books have a lot of moments out here on these wicker chairs or the stand-ins, for settling things, for moving the story forward or for revealing backstory. Now, none of that will be revealed here today about Scooter unless the backstory is nonsense. About why would you want to sit on a porch swing and hold a hand when you could be sleeping? And I said, Scooter, it's all starting to make sense. Have another sip of lemonade. Those seats are an option. Another great option, which Scooter noted, is the floor of the porch. And he did, we met over a long period of time. Just thinking about places you could sit on the porch. And boy, did he show me, he said, you could just sit sit up against one of the wicker chairs. You could just sit on the porch by itself. He said, it's much cooler down here. He said, you could lie on the porch. He goes, for a while, the hard wood feels good. And then he put his legs up on the porch swing with his knees bent and his back flat on the floor so that his, whatever you call that lower leg, calves and feet are on the porch swing. And he talked for hours. I don't know what he was talking about. Turtles, I think, or tortoises. And then he went out and talked about toads and frogs. And I think a few times I did fall asleep in my wicker chair. He also said another place, and not for children necessarily, is on the railing. And, of course, my porch has strong railings. And Scooter said you could straddle the railing, which only probably a child would do. Because Scooter says not necessarily comfortable because one of your legs is resting on the ground and the other one's hanging. He said you could sit facing outward or you could sit facing inward. And then he said you could lean against, one of the supports, one of the columns, which we try to have as few as possible so we have a good view here. But, every roof needs support, of course. And I'm trying to think of what other conversations we had about sitting there on the porch, but then Scooter went into the view. And as we began to talk about it, I realized there's some truisms about this image. Scooter said, is this a vestigial image of sipping lemonade on a porch, or is it archetypal? And I said, Scooter, I can only answer from my area of experience, which is on your brainstem. And he'd already stopped listening to me because he was messing around with something. It was another requirement. He said, I believe this a requirement. He goes, how come there has to be jigsaw puzzles? Is that another necessity of this image? And I actually, sometimes I have to joke with Scooter. So I had a telephone, an imaginary one. And I said, Scooter, let me dial up Norman Rockwell right away. And first off, see if Norman Rockwell did any, maybe Norman Rockwell's responsible for this whole thing. And Scooter said, call Henry Fonda while you're at it. And I said, the actor Henry Fonda. I said, I think we have better prospects with Norman Rockwell. And Scooter was, he said, he goes, you won't believe this. This is a Norman Rockwell jigsaw puzzle. And I said, well, I guess the puzzle's not solved, but or pieces of the puzzle may be coming together. You think it's a Norman Rockwell of Henry Fonda? And Scooter said, I don't want to find out because if Henry Fonda's put on a porch putting together a jigsaw puzzle, we may just be, what did you say? We're on the stem of a, then Scooter started talking about horseshoe crabs for a while. And then he crawled around the porch, and then he said, the seersucker suit, he said that's another, can be a requirement a lot of the time. And then Scooter sat up. He said, I have a serious thought. How many if Kevin Costner's been in 100 movies, let's just say that, pretend. He said, has Kevin Costner appeared on a porch-based scene in 78 of those 100 movies? And I said, Scooter, hold the phone. You're saying in 78% of Kevin Costner movies, he may have appeared on a porch. And I said, that's entirely possible, that you remember it that way. Then we got talking about the view from porch in this particular situation, lemonade drinking situation. And Scooter had a lot of thoughts about my thoughts about the view. And he wanted me to make sure to communicate them to you because to him, he said it's mind-blowing. And I said, as mind-blowing as your little factoid about Kevin Costner films, because I said, we're going to need another word for factoid. But I'd say maybe 32%, Scooter, I'd maybe believe is possible. And I said the most recent film you saw Kevin Costner in was Molly's Game. And I don't recall if there was any scenes on a porch. Most of them took place on a mountain and then a couple in a city. Yeah. So I don't know, Scooter, when Kevin Costner was in that film. But if that's only one, that leaves us a 99 out of 100. So Scooter wanted me to tell you about the view. He said, how come... Now, again, he's only speaking for him, so your mileage may differ. But he said this again is, I don't know, he said to swear him to nature, which I don't think is actually a colloquialism about being accurate or positive. But he kept saying that, swear him to nature. And he goes, how come when you're on a porch drinking lemonade and you're in a nature scene, there's always a lake, but it's always to your right and not to your left. And I thought about it for a spell, and I said, holy cow, he's absolutely right. I've never been... Now, I am saddled with the fact, where I'm from, but I said, he's right. I've never seen a porch scene, especially a lemonade leisure scene, in a forest or a natural-based setting with a view of the lake where the lake's been to the left. It's always to the right. And Scooter wanted to make it about, that he's left-handed. And I said, Scooter, come on, sit next to me, drink some lemonade, relax, think about taking a trip down, because what's the next thing you see in all those images, Scooter? Down that path, across that lawn. And he said the dock that reaches out there in the water. Almost perfect dock. And he said usually there's a big tree to the left somewhere on the path. And I said, exactly. Doesn't that just feel natural to walk on down there to the dock? Do some, and we did, some thinking. We left our lemonade behind because you don't bring a glass of lemonade on the dock, especially a dock of memories, because this could be a floating dock or it could be a fixed dock. But you go out there on the dock. Now you're supposed to be alone, so I let Scooter go out there alone, and you stare out at the lake. That's when you have a moment, a thinking moment, a quiet moment. A quiet moment in this situation with Scooter, I called a miracle. I said, blessed, I can hear the birds and the bees and the insects over his chirping voice. But you sit out there, and then he came back, he said, I got another question. How come in all these memories, when you look out to the right and you look out the lake, it's always a tree-lined lake, a forest-based lake, a woods-based lake, where the beaches. If this was a cabin of my choosing, there'd be, and I said, Scooter, this is a thinking lake. This here is a reflective lake, a contemplative lake, a lake with sounds scary, where the moon reflects, where the dawn and the dusk reflect, where if it's necessary, mist can come, where there might be a mallard or some cattails or a view across the lake is something that makes you think, that makes you wonder. It might be a view in the distance that says to you, well, can I swim out there all the way across or remember when? I said, the swimming lake's off here to the left, through the trees. Can't see it, because I think for you, Scooter, you'd want to go swimming all the time, so you couldn't quite relax here on the porch. But there's a swimming lake, and I said, actually, just a branch off of the thinking lake. You just can't see it. It bends off to the left there. It's got some nice beaches, a rope swing. And he said, just like a Mountain Dew commercial. I said, just like a Mountain Dew commercial, Scooter, exactly. Just like your memories were constructed by advertisements. Then Scooter said to me, what's impressive here is that we're alone, but it doesn't feel lonely. And I said, you're right, Scooter, you're right about that. Then then of course he took one of his tangents and he said, do the shutters on this house work? And then he went to work. He shut all the shutters. And I said, looks like they do work, Scooter. And he said, strangest thing that, he goes, shutters are back. You could quote me on that. And I said, I'll be sure to, Scooter. I'll be sure to when I'm quoting you. Lemonade's great. Lake's to the right. Want to go swimming. The shutters work. And he said, is this place on Airbnb or whatever? And I just had to laugh. I said, this kid is a cat. And I said, Scooter, sit here. Let's talk more about porches. And he said, where's the newspaper? And I said, why did you ask? And he said, because it's a part of this constructed image, isn't it? And I said, okay, remember, don't engage. I said, it's part of what being on a porch is, and he said, working on a crossword. And I said, exactly, a pencil, dog-eared paper, maybe a few from yesterday. And then he said, I didn't even notice that wicker sofa. That is good for napping, just beyond the newspaper tucked away there. And he said, back before, 20 years ago, there would be one other thing, something with blue lights, to deal with the skeeters. And I said, yes, Scooter. I said, I don't know if those things were ever proven to work or not. The zippers, as we would say here on a sleep show, the blue light zippers for the skeeters. But, yeah, we don't have those anymore. And he said, wow. And he said, I just realized that up on the right and the left side, there's these flat surfaces instead of being railings. And he goes, these are perfect for elbows and staring. And then he looked around. I said, what are you looking for, Scooter? He said, binoculars. I said, binoculars? He said, yeah. And I said, yeah, those are part of the image sometimes, and sometimes they're not. But yours is pretty true. There's a lot of trees here. And he said, oh, the trees, how come 99% of the time the trees are pine? And I said, when you look out your window, your porch, Scooter, that's what you see. And he said, have you seen any crepe myrtles? And I said, I don't know, Scooter. What does that have to do with pine trees and archetypes? And he said, I don't know. And then he said, don't you think it's funny that when I'm drinking lemonade on a porch, I'm not in a town or a city? And I said, well, Scooter, for you, it kind of makes sense. For me, I'd be comfortable anywhere. And I said, but if you were somewhere, Scooter, where would you be? And he said, well, I don't know. He goes, I'd like to be somewhere like San Francisco or New York, where there's a lot of people watching. But he goes, yeah, somewhere, if we're talking about the image and all those things, he said, normally be 4th of July, just about to reach dusk, off the main square, one of the main streets, across the street, a park or a gathering area. He said, but we'd be on the far side of the park, with the view, bandstand far in the distance, noise of joy, of carnivals, the smell of popcorn and peanuts on the air, some wheeze and some cheering, and even some distance music playing. Then Scooter zigged and zagged again and started talking about pulp and lemonade. And he said, what's that whole thing with pulp and no pulp and store-bought orange juice and lemonade? And I said, to be honest, Scooter, I don't know if you can buy lemonade with pulp and no pulp. And he said, I prefer pulp. And I said, I know this lemonade has pulp. I said, the lemonade type of beverage that may sponsor your podcast may not, though, since it comes in powdered form. And he said, the one we have when we're in the country and it's the right time. And I said, exactly, the one that Wilford Brimley eats in the afternoon after he's full of oatmeal. And Scooter says, I remember someone sending me a picture of Wilford Brimley. I think it was my friend Carrie, Wilford Brimley in a bathtub drinking. He goes, did I say that one time? And I said, Scooter, I don't know. Did you see it off your porch? He goes, no, what I'm seeing now. He goes, now that we're in town. He goes, a planter made from an old tire painted white. He goes, he goes, is that in every memory? And he said, one of those black lights on a black pole. He goes, is that a light or a lamp? And I said, Scooter's a light in the style of a lamp. And he goes, and it has two things to hang planters from. And it's a little glass on all four sides containing the lamp with a little black roof. And he goes, sometimes the house number be on there. And he goes, well, look at that wheel, that big old tire made into a planter. He goes, I think I used to deliver newspapers to this house that we're drinking lemonade at. And I said, we're enjoying the lemonade, aren't we, Scooter? And he said, what about those rocks? Are those spray-painted white rocks? And I said, Scooter, they are spray-painted rocks and a spray-painted tire. And he said, is this Americana? And I said, Scooter, I don't know. Why don't you get your bunting? And he goes, you're going to make another joke about it. And I said, what in the Francis Scott Key are you talking about, Scooter? And we both got on the ground of the porch and were giggling. And then we did like a little dance, not a dance so much as a walking up and down the stairs of the porch, a side leg. I guess it was a bit of a dance. Then once we got Scooter down from there, he wanted to find the faucet. He said, is it somewhere sticking out from underneath the porch, faucet, a head, to hook up the hose to that I'm going to trip over later? And we found it, and Scooter said, yeah, he goes, I think they usually sell something on this for an infomercial to cover it so you don't trip on it. And I said, Scooter, it's barely sticking out at all, and it's pretty obvious. He said, yeah, I tripped over it. And I said, more like you tripped into it and then off of it, Scooter. And he said, I love that we can't just get under there. He goes, it adds a mystery. You can't even quite see under the porch. But again, it's a kind of common mystery. And I said, let's step a little closer, Scooter. He said, I can feel cool dirt underneath here. And I said, strange that it feels cool and clean, huh? And he said, it does, though. It really does. And then he got down lower. He started looking at the grass. He said, look at how the grass is imperfectly cut up to the edge of the porch. It's got to be hard cutting the grass. And I said, yeah, you'd have to come back here with a trimmer or weed whacker and do the job, but then you're going to futz up the paint, And then Scooter said, come on, let's sit on the side of this tire planter. Feels good on my butt. That's what he said. I swear by lemonade. That's what he said. This tire feels good on my butt. Then he started playing the drums with his feet again while he was sitting on the tire planter. And I said, Scooter, those plants are going to wonder what's going on. And then we heard the whistle reports of the evening across the park. People celebrating. We heard sparklers and more giggles and laughter. Then Scooter wanted me to lie down next to, on the ground next to the porch and just lie there and listen, and we did. And we started to hear other sounds like a dog barking while it's playing catch in the distance, and a kid echoing back as he yelled to the dog, a mourning dove cooing, and then Scooter cooing back to it, but to himself, really. I don't think the bird could have heard him. And I watched him, and I said, is that some comfort cooing he's doing? And we started to hear other birds chirping. And as we listened even more, we heard the wind in the trees, a comforting sound. And I started to realize that we were back at the original porch lemonade spot. I could distinctly hear the sounds of the wind in the pine, evergreen trees, and Scooter's crepe myrtle, which I think he just wanted me to say crepe myrtle tree. And then we heard the water lapping on the dock in a comforting, repetitive way. When the wind had picked up, which we should have already known because it was in the trees. And then the comforting sound of waterfowl Probably the sound of a loon of all things. The snap of its wings flapping through the air, and its call reflected off the water into the evening air. And if you took the time to listen even closer, and you really think like Scooter, he said he could hear the sound of the moon. And I don't know if he meant it literally or figuratively. And I said, what does the moon sound like, Scooter? And he said, shush, it sounds like that. And then I said, like, shush, shush. And he said, here's what Norman Rockwell called, be quiet and listen to the sound of the moon. But I think he meant something more than that, like the sound of the moment. Because then you could even hear the sound of the lemonade in the glass as the ice has started to melt. If the lemonade getting, I said, time for a top off, Scooter. And you could even hear, if you really listen, the sound of a sweating lemonade pitcher onto the newsprint. I don't know if you could hear it blotting out some of the crossword I'd tried to work on earlier. But what's a certain letter word that starts with R for what we've been doing? Relaxing and enjoying one another's company. Listening to Scooter, looking through his eyes, I guess, seeing what he sees when he's on the porch with me, drinking lemonade, relaxing, taking it in, listening, and asking a lot of questions. He certainly has a lot of questions, but he certainly sees a lot of things. He said he even tried to open a drawer to one of the side tables. He said, what's in here? And I said, why don't you guess? And he said, playing cards, scissors, scraps of paper, pencil, thimble, needle and thread. He said 3 different size dice, 48 cents, coupons for the ice cream place, and he said, probably some other stuff. I said, you're right, sunglasses and sunscreen also, Scooter. He said, holy cow. And then he sat there and he went through the paper because some of it had, and he said, I've been here before. This is our score from when we're playing whatever card game we're playing. And I said, if you look in the other one, it's mostly napkins, Scooter. Why don't you wipe, you got a little lemonade on your chin. And he said, okay, it's good to know where the napkins are. And it's good to know where the good company is. Thank you, Carl, for having me here today. And I think it'd be interesting to have you on my show and let my audience really soak in what it's like sitting with you, sitting in a chair, feeling comfortable, my shoulders relaxed, sinking in, looking out at the trees at the nicest part of the day, feeling the air on your skin, the perfect temperature air. Off to your right, the sun reflecting on the water. You're anticipating something nice later. But right now is where you are with a glass of lemonade in your hand. That cool feeling against your palm. Your grip is strong, but the glass a tiny bit feels slippery. And you bring it to your lips, and the taste is sweet and sour and relieving. Your thirst is slaked, as they say. And I'm glad you came by. Thank you so much for listening to your podcast. This is Carl. Thanks for having me on. Hey, but this is Scoots with a tuck you in message. And you may have been hearing or listening, or maybe haven't, like the past month, listing all the people that that shouldn't support the show, right? If you're new, you only listen once in a while, you can't afford to support the show, you don't want to, you don't need to support the show. But that led to a question that tons of people on Sleep With Me Plus have been answering, and that maybe I could answer for you. Should you support the show? And the easiest question, it may have a quick answer. Yes. Are you listening to me right now? Yes. Are you hearing me right now? Yes. And do you want to be a part of this thing that we're doing? Sleepy joy and delight in the deep, dark night? And if the answer is yes, right now in this moment, go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus and sign up to not just support the show, but to be a part of this, being here for all those other people and for you. Not only will you get access to stuff based on how super listeners listen to the show, people that listen all night, people that have been listening for years, people that have favorites. They only listen to certain styles of shows. Maybe they only want the stories, but they want them as soon as they come out. Maybe whatever you like, that's what we built Sleep With Me Plus in mind. Or you just want ad-free listens, or you listen all night long. But are you a person that Sleep With Me, you feel comfort with this show? You found this show and you're like, man, this is what I've been looking for. Is that a yes? I never found anything like this. Is that a yes? You helped me when nothing else worked. That's a yes. I like the idea of having a bore friend or a bore bud. That's a yes. You're there when I need you. I can count on this show. Is that a yes? Yes. I listen when I wake up in the middle of the night. Yes, I listen when I have trouble getting to sleep. Yes, I listen to more than one episode a night when I need to. Yes, I listen every night I need the show because I know I can count on it. Yes, I've been listening for years and years and years. Or yes, I just want, yes, I'd rather skip the music or have a preference beyond what a regular listener might have. Yes, I know how much thought, care, kindness, caring, hard work from Scooter and other people go into making the show so it can be here for me. Yes, I hear and in listening when you ask for support. Yes, I know the show needs my support. Yes, I'm in a position where I can support the show, but most importantly, yes, I want to support the show. I can and I want to. And maybe I want to because it's a yes, I'd miss the show if it was gone. Yes, I don't think I could replace this podcast. Yes, I count on it. Or maybe it's a yes, wow, this podcast, when I support it, I get to help thousands of other people who count on this show. Yes, me supporting this is rare in this world. Even being in a position to support the show is pretty rare. Yes, having a desire right now to take action to support something I care about is tough and rare. It's not easy. That's the one thing I've learned over the past this year is how tough it is to support the show. Not just financially, but there's something in everybody's way, and that's normal. So I'm looking for the people that have so many yeses, they outweigh those barriers, like to support the show right now. Yes, I know it will feel good when I support the show. Yes, I know I could cancel at any time. I'm not committed to anything either. Yes, I love the bore giggles. Yes, I love sleepy joy and delight in the deep, dark night. Or yes, I just love the boredom, the consistency, the tone of the show. Yes, this podcast has changed my life. Yes, this podcast has changed my relationship with sleep. Yes, my life is better when this show is a part of it. But yes, right now I'm going to go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus and sign up to support the show. And yes, I'll set up the bonus content tomorrow. I won't do that because I'm already in bed. I'll just support the show now. But really, even if it's not your yes, I'm a part of this thing that's important to a lot of people. Yes, I'm a part of this thing that makes my life better and other people's lives better. And I want it to be here in this world. It is so different than a lot of things I see during the deep, dark day. Yes, I want to be a part of this thing, and I want to feel good about it. And you could do that at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. But if you can't, you don't need to feel, I mean, you might feel things about it, right? Because we all do. But it's not a strategy. Yeah, it's really hard to support the show, even when you're in a position to. And yeah, not everybody's in a position to, or not everybody has those yeses. Not everybody wants to support the show. And maybe you're just a new listener, listen along with curiosity. Or you're one of those people that listens to the show every once in a while when you're going through one of those seasons of life, one of those phases from life. You're a quote-unquote regular listener. You only listen for a little bit at a time. You really don't need to support the show. I mean, I guess you could, but you don't need to. We just need those people with all those yeses. And I guess to get one of those people to where the yeses pile up in a way that they switch the balance. And it's like, right now, I'm going to go to sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. And that they realize, that you realize, I once said, it's pretty normal to not be in a place financially or just where you want to support the show or where it's even possible. There's so many obstacles in that way, and that's okay. But that is also a big yes when someone does that, because that is what keeps the podcast around. And that is a sign, hey, I don't want this show not to, like, I want this show to be here. I can't replace it. So if any of those are, if you have enough yeses, please consider supporting the show. Thanks.